right, so welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today, we're diving deep on escaping the 9 to 5, a guide to entrepreneurial freedom. So,
But this is a good one.
yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Whether you're, thinking about maybe changing careers or just kind of curious, or if you're already, you're already on the entrepreneurial path, this will be a good one for you. We're going to kind of, take apart the article, the big ideas, see if they actually, hold up,
Right.
and hopefully give you listeners out there some new food for thought.
Yeah, this article really doesn't pull any punches, does it? It comes right out and says the whole idea of like trading time for money is like fundamentally flawed, and that job security, that thing we all think we want, is mostly an illusion.
It really does. It really makes you kind of like question things.
Yeah.
One of the lines from the article even says like, employers profit significantly from the time of employees selling it many times over. Like
Yeah,
that's a pretty bold statement. What's the logic behind that? Like how?
So the author is arguing that like in a traditional job setup, your income is basically limited by how many hours you can physically work, right? So an employer is essentially buying your time and then selling it for a profit,
Oh, okay.
whether that's through, billing clients hourly or using your labor to make a product or a service.
So it's almost like your time is like the raw material,
Mm.
and your employer is like refining it into something like more valuable.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a really interesting way to think about it.
Okay, that makes sense. But isn't that just kind of like how businesses work?
Well, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Is it inherently unfair, or is it just like the nature of how things work? The article definitely leans toward, it's kind of keeping employees stuck on a hamster wheel, trading their most valuable asset, their time, for a limited return.
Okay, yeah. No, I see that. But
Yeah.
but even if you agree with that, like building a business is hard, right?
Yo, absolutely.
Especially in the beginning, you're working long hours. Maybe you even have like a second job to make ends meet.
Right.
You know?
It's not all sunshine and roses.
Go.
And the article acknowledges that. It acknowledges the initial struggle is real, but it emphasizes the long-term potential.
Okay.
The author actually uses his own story as an example. He started a gardening service, and get this, he used the deposits from clients to cover his expenses,
Oh, wow.
which meant that he was actually profitable from day one.
Okay, that's really interesting. So he kind of built in profit from the very beginning by
Yeah.
using those deposits.
Smart, right?
Oh, that's pretty smart. But how does that scale up? What if you're not running a service-based business where you can,
That's a good question.
get those deposits?
Yeah, and that's where the article's emphasis on building equity comes in.
Okay.
It argues that, employees are trading their time for wages,
Yeah.
but entrepreneurs, they're building something that's actually growing in value over time.
So instead of just earning a paycheck, you're creating something that has the potential to like appreciate in value, kind of like, owning a house instead of renting.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy.
Okay.
The article actually highlights how most business owners, like, if you gave them the option, they wouldn't trade their equity to go back to being an employee no matter how high the salary was.
Oh, wow.
Which kind of tells you something, right? It really suggests that,
Yeah.
that sense of ownership and that potential for long-term wealth outweighs those, short-term challenges.
Yeah, okay. No, that's interesting. But let's face it. I mean, a lot of people, they cling to their jobs, right? They crave that perceived security.
Right.
How does the article address that? That fear of the unknown, that like, what if it doesn't work out kind of feeling?
Well, it's interesting because the author doesn't just offer, pep talks or anything.
Okay.
He actually dismantles, common myths head on.
Okay.
Take the whole "I don't have enough money" excuse.
Yeah.
He literally started his business with deposits. Right.
Or the I don't have time excuse.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
He flat out says people don't lack time, they lack purpose.
Whoa. Hold on. Is she saying that if you really wanted to start a business, you'd magically find the time?
It sounds extreme, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we all have the same 24 hours in a day, but life gets in the way, Jobs, family, commitments.
Of course, of course. He's not saying it's easy, but he's challenging the idea that time is the main obstacle.
Okay.
Like, think about it. If something really matters to you, don't you usually find a way to make time for it?
Yeah, I guess so. If you're really passionate about something, you prioritize it.
Right.
It's like how I always make time to watch my favorite show, even if I'm swamped with work.
Exactly. And that actually leads into another point the article makes, which is all about discovering your passion.
Okay.
And it suggests something pretty radical: pretend money is no object.
Whoa. Okay, that's a big leap. But how realistic is that? Like, bills still need to be paid, you
Yeah.
know? I know, it sounds counterintuitive, but there's a psychological element at play here.
Okay.
The author argues that when we're constantly stressed about money, our brains go into like this fight or flight mode,
Yeah.
right? And it's hard to be creative and tap into our true passions when we're in that state.
So you're saying that, like, escaping that fight or flight mode can actually, like, unlock your creativity and help you figure out what you really want to do.
Yeah, precisely. It's about creating the mental space to allow those aha moments to happen.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces kind of fit together.
Yeah.
So this article is less about, like, giving you a step-by-step business plan.
Right.
It's more about, like, challenging your assumptions and pushing you to think differently about, like, work and success.
Exactly. And that's where the author's own journey comes in. He didn't have some grand plan from the start.
Okay.
He discovered his passion for sales and entrepreneurship through experimentation,
Oh,
by
interesting.
stepping outside his comfort zone and trying new things.
So it's not just about, like, knowing what you want to do. It's also about being open to exploring different paths and learning along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
What else did he discover during this process of, like, experimentation?
Well, he actually figured out that figuring out what you don't enjoy is just as valuable as discovering what you do enjoy.
Mm.
He had this whole plan, to be a lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty quickly realized, like, nope, not for me.
Oh, wow.
He talks about how each experience, even the ones that felt like failures, helped him kind of narrow down what he truly wanted.
So it's like a process of elimination, as much as there's a process of exploration.
Yeah, for sure.
Which kind of goes against that whole, follow your passion advice you hear all the time, right?
Exactly. It's more nuanced than that. This article is really emphasizing the power of experimentation.
Okay.
Like, you don't need to have all the answers up front.
Right.
Sometimes you gotta, try things out, get your hands dirty, and just see what sticks.
Yeah, yeah. This reminds me of something we were talking about earlier, that whole idea of, like, escaping that fight or flight mode.
Right.
It's like, if you're constantly worried about making the right decision,
Yeah.
you might never actually, like, take any action at all.
That's a great point. The article, it argues that, like, that fear of failure, that's often what holds people back from actually pursuing their dreams.
Right.
But what if we reframed failure, as a learning opportunity?
I like that. Yeah.
It takes the pressure off.
It does. It does.
It's like, okay, so maybe this particular idea didn't work out,
Yeah.
but what did I learn from it? How can I apply that to my next venture?
Exactly.
It's about cultivating that growth mindset, that belief that you can learn and you can adapt, and ultimately you can achieve your goals, even if, the path isn't always a straight line.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening.
I know, right?
I'm also wondering, like, how does all this translate to the real world?
Yeah.
What are some, like, practical steps someone can take if they're feeling inspired to escape the 9-to-5, but they have no idea where to start?
Well, the article talks about this idea of, like, a service-based business model.
Oh,
Remember the author's first business, that gardening service?
yeah.
That shows you don't need, like, tons of money or a fancy business plan to get
No.
started.
Right. He was using deposits to fund his jobs.
Exactly.
But how common is that? It seems like most businesses need at least some upfront investment, right?
Well, it definitely depends on the type of business, of course.
Yeah.
But the point is, there are ways to, like, minimize your initial risk,
Good.
The article encourages readers to think about, like, what skills or talents they already have that they could offer as a service.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening and they're thinking, well, I'm good at organizing things, or I make really awesome jewelry. Like, how do they go from that to actually making money?
That's where, like, the internet comes in, right?
Yeah.
There are so many platforms and resources online now that make it easier than ever to start a business.
Yeah.
Whether it's, setting up an online store, offering virtual assistant services, teaching online courses. I mean, the possibilities are kind of endless.
Yeah, it really challenges, like, the traditional idea of what a job even looks like, right?
Totally.
It's not necessarily about, going into an office from 9 to 5 anymore.
Right.
You can create your own schedule.
Work from anywhere.
Work from anywhere. Be your own boss.
Be your own boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the article, it emphasizes that this kind of freedom and flexibility, it can be incredibly empowering, especially for people who feel kind of stifled by that, like, traditional work environment.
But let's be real. Building a business, even a small one, it takes a lot of work and dedication.
Oh, yeah.
It's not for everyone.
True.
What would you say to someone who's like on the fence? They like the idea of freedom, but they're not sure they have what it takes to be, an entrepreneur.
I'd say the key is to start small and experiment.
Oh.
You don't have to quit your job tomorrow and go all in on some risky venture.
Right.
You can start by, exploring your interests,
Uh-huh.
testing out ideas in your spare time, and just gradually building momentum.
So it's more about like dipping your toes in the water before you like dive head first.
Exactly.
Okay.
But what if, like, you're still feeling stuck? You have these ideas, but you're not sure how to make them a reality.
Yeah. What then?
That's a great question. And there's no, like, one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
But one thing the article mentions that I think is really important is the power of community.
Oh, okay.
Connecting with other entrepreneurs, whether, online or in person,
Yeah.
can provide, like, invaluable support, guidance, inspiration.
There's something about surrounding yourself with people who understand the challenges and the rewards of entrepreneurship
Right.
that I think can really make a difference.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, practical advice or business tips.
Yeah.
It's about mindset.
Right.
Being around people who are passionate about their work and committed to achieving their goals, it can be incredibly contagious.
It's like that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly.
So, if you're spending time with people who are constantly striving and growing, it's bound to rub off on you.
Totally. And that brings us back to the article's like core message, which is you have the power to create the life you want. It might not be easy,
Yeah.
but it's definitely possible.
I love it. It's so empowering.
It is.
But I'm also thinking about the practical side of things,
Mm.
building a business, marketing your services, managing finances. I mean, it can all feel really overwhelming.
Oh, for sure.
What advice does the article offer for like navigating those challenges?
It does. It does. The article really encourages readers to like embrace the learning process.
Okay.
It emphasizes that, you don't need to be an expert in everything right away. You can learn as you go. You can seek out mentors. You can take courses and just, leverage all the amazing free information that's available online these days.
Yeah, so it's almost like instead of being intimidated by what you don't know,
Yeah,
you view it as an opportunity to grow and expand your skill set.
exactly. I love that.
I like that perspective.
Yeah, and it ties back to that growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
That we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's about being open to new ideas, willing to experiment, and not being afraid to like ask for help when you need it.
This deep dive has been packed with insights.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure we bring it back to our listener.
Right.
If someone's been, listening to this and they're feeling that spark, that desire to break free from the 9 to 5, what would be like the one piece of advice you'd give them based on this article?
I would say start by like really identifying your strengths and your passions. What are you naturally good at? What do you enjoy doing? And once you have a clearer picture of that, start exploring ways to, turn those skills into a service or a product that you could offer to others.
And remember, it doesn't have to be some like grand world-changing idea.
No, not at all.
Right. Sometimes the simplest ideas are the most successful.
Yeah.
Like that gardening service, right?
Mm.
Who knew you could build a whole business around something as basic as yard work?
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of starting small. It's better to take action, even if it's imperfect,
Yeah.
than to like get bogged down in analysis paralysis.
This whole conversation has been a great reminder that we have more control over, our work lives than we often realize.
We do.
We don't have to settle for a job that doesn't fulfill us.
Right.
We can create something that aligns with our values, our passions, and our vision for the future.
Couldn't agree more.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
so empowering.
It is. It is. And one final thought I'd leave with our listener is remember that escaping the 9 to 5, it's not just about like making more money or having more free time,
Yeah.
It's about creating a life that feels meaningful and purposeful, a life where you're in the driver's seat.
I love that. So if you're listening and you're ready to take that leap, to explore those uncharted territories, remember, you're not alone.
Yeah.
There's a whole community of entrepreneurs out there who've been in your shoes, who have, faced those fears and who have come out on the other side stronger and more fulfilled.
That's right.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll be sharing your own story of escaping the 9 to 5 and inspiring others to do the same.
I hope so.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everybody. We'll see you next time.